We're gonna look at this. This will be our starter and essentially a mood killer in the beginning. The scariest film ever made isn't a horror film by Professor what is his name? Jelkington. This is a re-upload. The original channel owner is gone. Apparently he nuked his own channel, like destroyed his internet history and then just vanished. So that's why the original channel is in the original video is gone. Somebody asked. So yeah, that happened. That happened. Otherwise, SCP documentaries upload this one, but that's about it. And yeah, we're just gonna jump in. Also, please consider liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. This is more of a harsh topic, so if you are not into that, you should probably not watch this. But yeah, we're gonna look at this. We are going to look at this. But yeah, it contains stuff that you don't want to see usually. Just saying. Here's the warning. Here's the warning. If you want to run, do it now. Run now. Run now. Run now. Yeah.
Horror, a hard emotion to
That's Day of the Dead, 1985. I was like, wait a minute. We're gonna get a bunch of hands, aren't we? It's gonna show hands. But yeah, we'll see.
define and an even harder emotion to induce. Since the early days of cinema, filmmakers have been making films intended to scare and terrify audiences, resulting in the creation of the horror film genre. For a film to be considered a part of the horror genre, typically the film has to follow certain filmmaking
The Thing from 1982, still incredibly well made.
conventions associated with the genre. However, unlike many other genres of film, horror has one of the least rigid definitions, causing the horror genre to contain a colorful collection of
How's 1977? That's just yeah, very horrific. A head. It's a head. It's a head that is very happy. That's a very happy severed head.
films, tailored to the audience's tastes of the respective eras they were made in. The extremely wide range of horror films in existence.
Did that bitch just fly? That bitch did just fly. Faust. 1926.
Along with the subjectivity of horror, has made it difficult to identify the scariest
Isn't that just this guy right now? That's literally how I look into the microwave. A cute girl's head, yay. I have an idea for that head. Anyways, moving on.
film ever, though. Common choices for the scariest film ever made are typically horror classics like The Exorcist,
Amen.
Psycho, Nosferatu, The Shining,
That was just literally a clip of me. This is how I leave the basement. Yeah. Wait. I know this one. Isn't that where the guy just like uses an axe and tries to get to a chick and then looks like through the hole he made in the door?
Finish my sentence. I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in.
or Halloween. But in my opinion, the scariest film ever made isn't even a horror film. It's a 1985 Soviet war film titled Come and See.
Well, in the hub, it's the see and come. Anyways.
Soviet filmmaker Elim Klimov's final film, Come and See, follows the events witnessed by a Belarusian teenager named Fyodor as he joins a Soviet-led partisan unit in Nazi-occupied Belarus, while World War II rages on. However, soon after joining the partisans, Fyodor is forced into fighting for his own survival as a Nazi anti-partisan operation occurs in the area. Ultimately, Fyodor experiences the horrors of Nazi war atrocities, including the Holocaust, firsthand. In order to understand why the film is
And that video is heavily demonetized, probably age restricted as well. It's Jover. Yoink. Yeah. Yeah. I should really watch this with Coco's. I want to ruin his day in a good way. I don't know about that one, Chief.
So scary, I first need to give some historical context. When most people think of the Holocaust, the first thing that comes to mind are the horrors of Nazi extermination camps, like
Yeah, that's worse, right? They literally just like made them like dig their own graves in the most literal sense possible. And other stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy, right? If you're like, right, when we watch the war atrocity videos and like the Nazis were in there like 4 or 5 times, yeah. And then the rest was just Japan, pretty much.
Auschwitz and Treblinka, where millions of European Jews were systematically
Dachau is also one. I was in Dachau at once. We visited that camp. Very interesting. Very interesting. I remember that.
murdered in specially designed gas chambers and crematoria. However, there are many more stages and elements to the Holocaust than just the Nazi death camps. In fact, by the time the first death camps became operational in late 1941, the Holocaust had already been occurring for at least 3 years, and an estimated 2 to 4 million people had already been killed in what is referred
Map from the Nazi Jäger report indicating how many Jews have been deleted in the Baltic states and the Soviet Union by February 1942. Hold up. By the way, this means literally just Jew-free, right? Judenfrei, Jew-free. So here we have 963, here we have 3,600. Maybe 800, I think 600. This could be either, I think this is 25,238. This is 163,421. And this is 41,828. This is how many. This is the numbers. This is the numbers. No, I do not support the German painter. Austrian painter, by the way. He's not German, he's Austrian.
to by historians as the Holocaust by bullet. Since the outbreak of World War II in 1939, the Nazis had been killing not only Jews, but other ethnic groups deemed as subhumans, like Poles and Slavs in Nazi-occupied territories.
Yeah, gypsies, technically parts of the French already were considered that. Not only that, but also political opponents, communists. Nobody misses communists. Democrats, people just against the regime, were also put there. People were disabled as well, right? Disabled people too.
East of Germany. In fact, the Nazis had special SS paramilitary units, known as Einsatzgruppen, that worked alongside Orpo police battalions and auxiliary police groups, known as...
You literally don't have to keep it German. Einsatzgruppen. You don't have to really, it's just a troop. It's literally just a troop, interestingly enough, without PDFs. I have no idea. They probably did that too. I'm assuming they threw in everything that just like was like immoral in their eyes, obliterate. They threw in everything. Eventually they threw in everything. The most slightest like anti-regime, goodbye. Everything.
As Schutzmannschaft, to shoot hundreds to thousands of people in mass killings behind front lines. The Schutzmannschaft were especially despised by occupied populations, as the groups were formed out of Nazi collaborators from the native population, effectively meaning that members of a Nazi-occupied community would help the Nazis murder their own community. A particularly well-known mass killing of innocent civilians at the hands of the Nazis was the Katyn massacre in 1943, where the infamous SS Dirlewanger Brigade, composed primarily of convicted criminals, conscripted into the Waffen-SS.
Dirlewanger Brigade. That's what it is, or brigade in English. Well, makes sense. Interesting.
Alongside Nazi collaborators, killed almost the entire population of the village of Katyn. This specific massacre served as the basis for Come and See's screenplay, which was co-written by Klimov and Aleš Adamovich, a Belarusian writer who wrote the Katyn story. Adamovich's personal experience as a partisan in Nazi-occupied Belarus when he was a teenager also provided invaluable insight as he and Klimov wrote the screenplay, likely contributing to Come and See's extreme realism. So why is Come and See so scary? Well, first off, the film was produced very much like a horror film rather than a war film. Instead of focusing on showing large, set-piece battles, Come and See focuses solely on Frora's struggles, choosing to depict events from his somewhat subjective perspective rather than an omniscient perspective typical of war films. Really, all of the filmmaking aspects, from the cinematography, sound, acting, and even the makeup, resemble what you would see.
Damn. Interesting. Yeah, when you look like typically when you watch war films, it's like war films, right? We have war. This doesn't seem like any type of like actual really war stuff going on besides like from what we've seen for now from the beginning, but like the boys just walking around aimlessly, it seems.
See in a horror film rather than a war film. The entire film was shot with natural lighting, meaning many scenes shot in naturally darker areas had to be filmed with much faster film stock. As a result of the faster film stock, the film is extremely grainy, perfectly matching the grittiness of the film's subject matter. Shooting with natural lighting also meant that the film in general is literally very dark. Shadows almost always have very little visible detail in them, and blacks are usually extremely crushed. Certain scenes look so dark to a point that they may even be underexposed. Even scenes likely shot in direct sunlight look dark. Again, the film's overall dark visuals pair perfectly with the dark and grim subject matter, giving the film that horror-type vibe. The framing of many shots also mimic horror films. In some scenes, the camera...
But yeah, everything looks very much, it looks like, really like, you know, when you look at like Generation 5 Pokemon and you look at Generation 6 Pokemon and everything lost color. That's basically the equivalent. Everything is like, there's not much color going on, right? The grass is supposed to be green. Probably not super green, I honestly... To be fair, is it really in direct sunlight? Because, like, most of the shots we've seen, there's no clear blue sky, right? It's just usually, it's like cloudy, right? This isn't... Unless, like, the desaturation makes the clear blue sky of, like you grayish, but aside from that, this really just mostly looks like very desaturated. But in those as well, we follow a character amidst an ongoing war. But how do I put this? They don't make it seem as gruesome as it actually is, right? They don't really do that for like regular war movies. I've seen this movie like, I don't remember, probably 2023. It messed me up. I think it's an incredible movie, though I have only seen it once. Okay, interesting.
Follows characters from behind, making it seem as if someone is watching or stalking them. At multiple points during the film, there are shots of a Nazi reconnaissance plane flying overhead of the characters, emphasizing this feeling that the characters are being constantly stalked. The appearance of the plane also foreshadows that something bad will occur, as it always appears before an attack or some other atrocity. But most of the time, the scariest shots in the entire film are simple straight-on close-ups of characters. There are two different types of these masterful shots in the film. Ones that show a character's terrified reaction to something, or ones that intend to directly horrify the viewer. Both types of these shots are extremely terrifying, in large part because the actors almost always stare directly into the camera, making it seem like they're directly addressing the viewer. Watch this scene where Frora finds out his family has been murdered by the Nazis.
That's very interesting. Okay, well, that's terrifying. That's very terrifying.
Now watch this scene where Flora first meets Glasha, a girl he later befriends.
Меня зовут Глаша. Глафира. Понял?
Yeah, nah, bro. Nah, bro. I'm packing my shit. The first one is creepy, but this one is like, nah, bro. I'm packing my shit. Look at her. Look at her. Look at her. This looks like something devious is about to happen to me. This looks like I'm about to get touched without consent. That's crazy.
Дурак.
Ты чего?
А ты чего? Флёра. Чё ты здесь околачиваешься? Пожалели мальчика. Оставили.
Although these two scenes have different contexts, they both are equally terrifying because of the frontal close-ups used. The close-ups also highlight the absolutely amazing performances by the actors. The performances in Come and See are so effective that oftentimes it seems like you aren't watching an actor reacting to stage.
How random to just like take a snap. Take a pic, boy. Take a pic. This is the moment in history. Take a picture. Don't trust anyone look at me like that. Real.
Events, but instead a real person experiencing reality. Klimov was so impressed by 13-year-old actor Alexei Kravchenko's portrayal of Flora that he said,
Все равно это могло кончиться очень печально. Просто печально. Психушкой могло кончиться, потому что там много состояний, когда даже никогда там...
Often, the actor's expressions and body language are enough to carry a scene with little to no dialogue. For instance, watch in this scene how Flora and Glasha's expressions along with the sound design foreshadow an extremely disturbing reveal.
What have they been eating? Uh-oh. Cats? Did they eat cat? I had heard cat noises. Uh-oh. Oh. So... humans? Hmm. I do not trust the water. What's in the water? They didn't just throw anything down there, did they? Ugh. It reminds me of the zombie in The Walking Dead that was in the well. Why is she looking at him like this? Stop being freaky. Thank you. Why is she freaky? I think he knows those children have probably been killed. Probably, yeah.
Знаю, где они. Пошли. Балда! Пошли. Я не тут. Близко.
Oh, well, there they all are, that's for sure.
The scene I just showed also highlights how the film's sound design is very much like a horror film's. The film chooses to forego a regular soundtrack, instead using a mixture of ominous ambient music with extremely creepy sound collages, like in this hellish sequence.
Yeah, this is like some kind of like music you would hear in like a creepypasta or something. That kind of energy. It's also like very, well, ominous is the right word, right? It's also, I wouldn't even say this movie is creepy. More like uncomfortable, ominous, not necessarily creepy. But yeah, he's stuck in a bog, so that, yeah, that is definitely, for most people here, it would be Jover.
Ultimately, what makes Come and See the scariest film ever made is the events depicted in it. The film climaxes when an entire village is rounded up by an SS brigade with the help of native collaborators and herded into an old church, where the entire village is burned alive. Klimov holds nothing back during this sequence, juxtaposing the villagers' sheer terror with the Nazis' perverse joy in killing civilians. Really, the point I'm trying to make here is that the things you witness in Come and See are not fictional. Sure, the events are staged in the film, but these things actually happened.
Yeah, something like that did happen. They did do that. Yep. Now that gun works right out of the ball. It probably no longer works. Probably at that point, the gun probably has taken enough damage to where it probably won't work properly anyways. Even before the bog, it's crazy. This was Elem Klimov's last movie. And his first movie was a kids' comedy about 3 Russian kids doing pranks on a summer camp called Welcome or No Trespassing. So we have somebody who's very versatile in the genres they can depict. Interesting.
What you see in this film happened in real life. There are many terrible horror films out there that heavily promote in their advertising how the film is based on true events. But almost always what's depicted in those films is very exaggerated and romanticized compared to what actually happened. Come and See is the opposite of this. As Elem Klimov says,
Ну, вот в той же Америке люди с трудом смотрят этот фильм. Хотя есть и те, которые смотрят, а с трудом смотрят, потому что, ну, я уже говорил, они говорят, мы придумали фильмы ужасов, но это же совсем другое, это же жизнь.
Yeah, we will definitely not show this, because otherwise this channel is getting nuked.
even yourself could commit such horrible atrocities under the right conditions. That's what makes Come and See the scariest film ever made, bringing to the forefront the darkest depths of our own thoughts. In my opinion, one of the scariest scenes in the film is when one of the captured SS perpetrators of the massacre justifies the killings, espousing the real-life Nazi ideologies that encouraged such atrocities.
Да, это я сказал. Без детей выходи. А дети оставить. Du, besetz. Ich hab so gesagt, weil alles seinen Ursprung in Kindern hat.
Я так сказал, потому что с детей начинается все.
Ihr dürft nicht existieren.
Yeah, true. To permanently defeat somebody, technically, no one can be left alive. That is technically very accurate. Yeah, 07 ripped that. It's been ripped the entire time. This stream is probably getting blocked at some point. I'm assuming the stream definitely gets blocked after I'm done for sure.
Вас не должно быть.
Nicht jedes Volk hat das Recht auf Zukunft.
Не все народы имеют право на будущее. Слушать. Всем слушать.
Minderwertige Rassen sind es nämlich, den Bacillus des Kommunismus gebären.
Низшие расы плодят заразу коммунизма.
Ihr dürft nicht bestehen.
Вас не должно быть.
Und die Mission wird erfüllt.
И миссия будет исполнена.
Heute oder morgen.
Сегодня или завтра.
Heute oder morgen.
Klimov ends the film by posing a moral question to the viewer. What do you do with someone who has committed such horrible atrocities? Do you submit them to the same torture and horrible deaths of their victims? Do you forgive them of their actions? Or do you pursue some
Nah. I think if you take a human's life, you lose all human rights. Technically, you deserve to get obliterated. Before the stream gets blocked, how will you upload the reactions? I might not be able to upload this depending on how it goes.
middle ground where the individuals are punished but in a humane way? This question arises when the partisans must decide the fate of captured SS members and their collaborators. It seems at first that the partisans intend to burn the prisoners alive, but instead decide to shoot them, subjecting them to a less torturous but still painful death. The now battered Flora then comes across a portrait of Hitler in a nearby puddle. What follows is one of the most powerful montages in cinematic history, in which Flora repeatedly shoots the portrait of Hitler, as Hitler's own life plays in reverse through real news footage. It appears that Flora thinks that by killing this symbol of the man who created this hell may somehow fix things and prevent all that has happened from ever happening. As Flora succumbs more and more to his rage, the montage gets earlier into Hitler's life, until it finally stops on a photo of Hitler as a baby, being held in his mother's arms. At this point, Flora snaps out of his rage-induced trance, seemingly reaching the conclusion that by killing baby Hitler, he is no better than the very man he so hates. Thus, Flora seems to reach some form of acceptance of the position he now is in, realizing that ultimately there is nothing that he or
Well, what else can you do? Nothing. You can't do nothing. It is what it is. At that point, it is what it is. What are you gonna do about it? It changes nothing.
most other people could have done to prevent this tragedy. The final shot of the film, where Flora runs to join back up with the partisans, cements Come and See as the scariest film ever made, saying to the viewer that this is only a single incident in a much broader war that will still continue for 2 more years at this point in time. A war that will become even more deadly than it already is, and one in which Flora and many of the partisans will likely not survive. As Elem Klimov says,
Я не жалею, что я это сделал, этот фильм. Хотя вот так тяжело вот он рождался. И
Interesting. He doesn't regret it. I mean, makes sense. Here is something interesting though. When we talk about specifically the Russian side of things, let's not forget that the Russians made the Ukrainians starve. Let's not forget that. The Russians weren't that much better. They weren't actually that better at all. They made the Ukrainians starve. Funny, huh?
так тяжело дался. Вот. Но надо в жизни иногда совершать какие-то настоящие поступки и деяния. Наверное, тогда имеет смысл заниматься творчеством. Вот, если ты что-то людям можешь на самом деле серьезное, большое, серьезное принести.
Well, that is pretty much the end of the video. Nothing much happens here anymore. 628 people were burned in that house. Church, by the way. Funny. Funny again. Just goes against, you know, the statement that Nazis were Christians. Funny, huh? Yeah, that was interesting. I did not know this movie existed. I wouldn't watch it personally. I wouldn't watch that. It's probably nowhere easy available to begin with. But I would personally would not watch that. But very interesting to know that something like that exists. So basically, somebody really locked in, really locked in for this movie. Yeah. Again, the original channel's gone. He nuked his channel. I don't know why. Probably due to, like, in the comments it says health issues something. But yeah, very very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting.